So that brings us to 2-1 Glassboro, and they're pulling to Boston. I expect to see them begin to go over the front men a bit. Oh, an immediate interception.
I think the key here is to see if Boston can keep that defensive pressure on Glassboro to stop their offensive movement. It's very deliberate, and it's high percentage passes that they make. If Boston can keep the pressure on to force a turnover, that's going to be key.
Once you put yourself in the situation of turning over the disc right at the goal line, it's so hard to break up, but Boston did it. A long pass, wide open, stops over the line for a goal, bringing them back to even.
Nice movement by Boston there. They're taking advantage of the full length and opening the game up before the zone has a chance to set. That was a catch in the end zone for the score by Keith Armstrong from Boston. Boston's now throwing off to the Boro. Let's see if they can put the defensive pressure on at this point. The score is now tied up at 2-all.
A fairly amazing statistic given the usual certainty of the offense of Boston is that they've had 28 throwing attempts and they've turned it over 4 times in this brief period. We got a call back on a walking call.
As we pointed out before, just to explain that, you're allowed to pivot foot and you're not allowed to walk with the disc, and the players will call a travel if they see that happening.
Disc is coming back. It's marked by Boston. All the players in position.
Good defensive pressure by Boston here.
We should note that the offensive player has a 15-second period to release the disc, and if the defender feels that there's a stalling situation, they begin to call the count on the 15 seconds. And at the count of 15, there is an automatic turnover, although that's rarely seen.
And a score by Glassboro. Again, very nice deliberate working there.
You couldn't see that one because of the crowd.
That was Louis Laredo won the catch from Frankie Boro.
Well, the Boro's statistics are a good bit more impressive than Boston's right now. They've had 53 throwing attempts and only 3 turnovers. Even that seems a bit high for them, but I guess it is understandable in the tension of the beginning of a game like this one.
Yeah, I don't think either team has really settled down into things at this point. We're still early on.
This is an interesting situation here, that it's such a fine line between control and getting bogged down by the defense. Oh,
unfortunate drop by Boston there.
They've got to execute no matter how much they theorize about breaking this zone. If they can't make those simple execution movements, they're simply not going to succeed.
It's a lovely mellow cherry.
The last 2 that the Boro has turned over have been within 15 meters of the goal, and they're just incredibly difficult to turn away at that point, even though Boston did it the last time they made the big turnover. Oh,
An unforced turnover by the Boro. Boston takes possession again. Let's see what they do with it. It's a long throw.
Easily picked off by the deep man. Moves it back quickly. Wow. They certainly caught Boston unaware. They were unable to make the quick transition to offense, defense, and back. Andy.
Okay.
1982, they feel that for the first time in decades, the GOP has a chance at winning that job.
Here we go with the pull from the Boro. They're up 4-2, and they've moved their percentage up significantly now with 62 attempts, and they're still holding at the 4 turnovers.
Another drop by Boston there. Boston's only working a little over 80% completion rate at this point.
That may seem a bit high, but actually it really isn't the level that they're used to. Often we'll see a 95% completion rate. The critical thing is how many goals per possession. Actually, they're having a lot of completions. The Boro offense, of course, which uses so many throws to get it in, gets a high percentage, but if they turn it over right before they go in, it's not worth anything. I think there's a new level of intensity in that Boston defense.
The defense seems to be stopping them.
They've pressed them into outlets.
Back up the field. That's right.
It's interesting to me, they're shading. They're really shading a good bit. It almost was verging on a zone in the front segment of play there. Looking over the top, nice hit. That's the kind of thing. Puts the defense on their heels. Again, back into the control game. Nice toss.
5-2 Glassboro. They're just keeping in real control. I haven't seen many drops at all by them. That's what's doing it. Time of possession.
That was a perfectly tailored throw.